It was supposed to be just another morning show appearance routine, polished, rehearsed. Former heavyweight champion Mike Tyson was there to promote his new memoir and an upcoming Netflix documentary. He looked calm, maybe a little tired, but still sharp. The cameras rolled, the lights were warm, and the host smiled. "Mike, you've seen it all," the host began. "But we have something today you didn't expect." Tyson raised an eyebrow. "What's that?" A producer stepped forward and handed the host a cream-colored envelope, sealed in gold script. "This letter arrived last night," the host explained. "From West Africa, from the president of Burkina Faso, Ibrahim Traoré. He said it's for your eyes only, but agreed it could be shared publicly, if you were okay with that." Tyson's face stiffened slightly, his jaw tightening. After a moment, he nodded. "Go ahead." What happened next wasn't just unexpected, it was soul-shaking. This wasn't about boxing or a comeback story. The letter reached into Tyson's past, pulling open wounds the world never truly saw. Not the fighter, not the showman, but the boy, the broken, angry boy behind the gloves, and the leader halfway across the world who saw him. The host began reading slowly. "Dear Mr. Tyson, my name is Ibrahim Traoré. I am president of the transition in Burkina Faso. I do not write. To you today as a politician. I write as a boy who once had nothing, who sat in a crowded room watching you fight on a flickering TV screen. You were not just a boxer, you were proof. Proof that pain could be turned into power. That a boy from nowhere could stand before giants and make them fall." Tyson leaned in, eyes fixed, his chest rising slightly faster. "When my country was hurting, I remembered your eyes, not your fists, the pain, the fire, the refusal to be broken. That's how I try to lead now, with that fire. Thank you, Mike Tyson. You taught me to rise, not as a fighter, but as a man." Tyson looked away. His voice cracked. "Stop. Just stop for a second." The tears had already begun forming. He tried to smile, but something inside him buckled. He wasn't just touched, he was unraveled. His hands trembled on the table. The entire studio held its breath. He saw me," Mike whispered. "Not the knockouts, not the titles, just me." He wiped his face, but the tears kept coming slow at first, then uncontrollable. "I was 14, homeless, angry. I wanted to die back then. Nobody knew, nobody cared," he said, choking back emotion. "I fought because it was the only time anyone ever looked at me." He turned to the camera. "But to know that halfway across the world someone saw me and became something. A president." Tyson broke. No one cut the cameras. No one moved. The most feared man in the ring had become the most human man in the room. It wasn't about boxing anymore. It was about being seen. About a boy who once had no voice helping. Another boy find his own. From pain came purpose. From punches came peace. And from a letter came healing. Cut to commercial. Mike sat silently, wiping his face. The host leaned in, gently. "Do you want to keep going?" Tyson nodded. "Yeah, the world needs to hear this." When the cameras returned, there was no script, no promo talking points. Just raw, trembling truth. "Ibrahim Traoré," Mike said, his voice thick. "I've never met you, but I feel like I know you." He held the letter close to his chest, as if it were something sacred. I wasn't supposed to survive my youth. I was a thief, a fighter. I was locked up before I even knew what love was, he said. The audience was silent. But this man, this president, he saw strength in my suffering. Nobody talks about that part. The hunger. The nights you pray not to wake up. But this letter, it told me I wasn't alone. The studio, once filled with lights and laughter, had become a place of reflection. One man's tears had become another man's mission. Meanwhile, across the world in Ouagadougou, Burkina Faso, President Ibrahim Traoré sat in his modest office. The lights were dim. A ceiling fan buzzed softly overhead. His security waited outside, giving him space. He was watching the interview live. When Tyson broke down, Traoré looked away, wiping his own tears. He felt it, he whispered in French. He really felt it. On the wall behind him weren't portraits of dignitaries, but photos of children in dusty schools, farmers, in sun-scorched fields, soldiers, nurses, his people. And among them, one small frame, a young Mike Tyson, shirtless, fists clenched, eyes on fire. It was never about the gloves. It was always about the spirit. Just then, his assistant entered. With an update, "The UN just reached out," he said. "They saw the interview. They want to talk about your education reforms." Ibrahim nodded slowly. "Let them wait. Tonight. The world doesn't need politics. It needs truth." Hours later, back in New York, the interview had gone viral. Within hours, it reached millions. Clips of Mike Tyson's tearful response to President Traoré's letter flooded every corner of the internet. Celebrities reposted it. Schools played it in assemblies. Refugee camps across Africa cheered. But the story wasn't over. Just after midnight, Mike's phone rang. Unknown number. International code. He hesitated, then answered. "Hello?" A calm, deep voice replied, "Mr. Tyson, this is Ibrahim Traoré." Silence. You're the guy from the letter?" "Yes, and you're the man who taught me how to survive when I was a boy with no shoes." They didn't speak like leaders, not even like legends. They spoke like survivors. "Thank you," Mike whispered. "No," Ibrahim replied. "Thank you. You gave me the courage to stand when the world told me to kneel." A pause. "Mike, would you come to Burkina Faso?" Mike blinked, stunned. For what? Not for a fight. For hope. And in that moment, two men-born continents apart, scarred by different battles, had built a bridge through pain. Something extraordinary had just begun. 2 days later, Ouagadougou Mike Tyson stepped off the plane. There was no red carpet, no paparazzi, just heat, dust, and disbelief. Children ran barefoot alongside his car, shouting his name. "Mike Tyson! Mike Tyson!" Inside, Tyson looked out the window, eyes full not with pride, but peace. It was no longer about boxing. It was about the kid he once was, and the boy who still believed. Mike Tyson didn't come to Burkina Faso to be a hero. There were no red carpets waiting, no reporters, no staged smiles. When he arrived at the modest government house, President Ibrahim Traoré greeted him not with ceremony, but with something far more rare, a handshake that lingered. It wasn't political. It was personal. They didn't talk strategy. They didn't talk policy. They talked pain. Later that afternoon, Traoré took Mike to a rural school on the outskirts of the capital. The building was cracked, paint flaking, windows missing, but the courtyard echoed with children's laughter. Inside, sitting cross-legged on a dusty concrete floor, was a boy with a swollen black eye. "Another street fight," someone whispered. Mike sat beside him. No entourage, no cameras. Just one wounded soul beside another. "You fight?" Mike asked gently. The boy nodded. Mike leaned closer, voice low. "Me too. I used to fight too." Then he paused, looked the boy in the eyes, and said, "But you know what the strongest punch is? It's the one you don't throw." The boy stared, confused, then curious. Without a word, Mike slipped off his heavy championship ring and placed it into the boy's small, scarred hands. The boy held it like it was made of stardust. His fingers trembled. President Trory knelt down beside them. "In this country," he said, "you are not your scars. You are your spirit." The boy burst into tears, and so did Mike. That night, under the wide African sky, the boxer and the president sat together on a quiet rooftop. Below them, the lights of Ouagadougou twinkled like stars fallen to earth. Troy handed Mike a simple wooden box. Inside, letters, dozens of them, written by children from every corner of the country. Word had spread. The world had seen the letter the president wrote to Mike. Now the children were writing back. "To you." Mike opened the first. "Dear Mike Tyson, you are a lion who made it through fire. Please don't forget us." Another one read, "My papa died fighting to protect our village. But now I believe I can be strong like you." Mike's hands tightened around the letters. His eyes flooded. He held them close like gold, like something holy. "These," he whispered voice, cracking, "these are worth more than any belt. More than anything I ever won." President Trory nodded slowly. "And now you see, brother, pain connects us more than fame ever could." The rooftop fell into silence. Only the soft wind moved rustling through the children's words. No speeches, no headlines, just two men, two broken boys who survived. And in that stillness, something unbreakable was sealed, not by politics, but by purpose. One letter in particular caught Mike's eye. It was written on torn, faded notebook. Paper. "Dear Mr. Tyson, my name is Matty. I'm 11 years old. My father was a soldier. He said your fights gave him courage. He died last year. Now I try to be brave. I saw you cry. That means even lions cry, so maybe I can cry too." Mike froze. He was 11 again, watching his mother fade, alone in a rotting apartment, praying for a world that didn't seem to have space for boys like him. His hands shook. His throat closed. "Even lions cry," he whispered. Trory's voice was gentle. "That boy, Matty, he lives nearby. Would you like to meet him?" Mike didn't speak. He just nodded. The next morning they drove too. Hours through red dust roads. Past women carrying water jugs on their heads. Past boys playing football with plastic bags tied into a ball. Past goats. Past silence. Past time. When they arrived, a barefoot boy ran out from a low mud brick home. He didn't look like he was meeting a sports icon. He looked like he was seeing a ghost, a living echo of someone he'd only known through stories. Matty stood frozen. In his hands he clutched a worn photo of his father in uniform. Creased, frayed, stained with time and tears like it had been held under a pillow night after night. Mike knelt down in front of him until they were eye to eye. "You're braver than I ever was, little man," he said. Matty blinked. Tears formed. "But—" "I cry," he said softly. Mike smiled. Not the smile of a champion, the smile of someone who'd seen hell and come back. "So do I." A hug that shook a legend without any warning. The boy stepped forward and wrapped his small arms around Mike. It wasn't the kind of hug people give for the sake of cameras or posed pictures. It was the kind of hug that comes from fear, the fear of losing someone. Again, Mike held the boy tightly, and then something in him gave way. His arms trembled, his breath broke. Tears spilled from his eyes, loud, wrenching sobs that seemed to shake his entire body. The kind of sobs a man tries to hide but can't anymore. The camera crew had respectfully backed away. No flashes, no zoom lenses, just space. But standing not too far away was President Ibrahim Traoré of Burkina Faso, hand pressed against his heart, his eyes glassy. This moment wasn't just a hug. It was pain meeting pain, loss meeting loss, and somehow healing being born in the space between. Under a mango tree, the boy, Matty, looked up and asked in a whisper, "Will you leave too?" Mike knelt to his eye level and met his gaze. "I'll be back," he said, voice steady. "I promise." This time he meant it. Back in America, 2 days later, Mike Tyson was back in the U.S. He was set to appear on a major network for an interview that was supposed to be light boxing stories, nostalgia, a few laughs. The host opened with a grin. "You've been off the grid, Mike Africa, huh? What were you doing? Starting a new fight club?" Mike laughed briefly, then paused. "Actually," he said, voice low, "I was being healed by an 11-year-old boy." Silence fell across the studio. Mike pulled out a folded letter from his jacket pocket. He opened it, hands slightly shaking. "It's from Matty. He wrote this to me." He read the letter aloud. "Even lions cry." His voice cracked. His eyes welled up. And on live television, the most feared boxer in history began to cry. No one moved. The audience froze. Even the host's smile faded into something softer respect. Mike continued, "I met children who've lost everything, yet they have more heart than most champions I've ever known." He looked directly into the camera. "Ibrahim Traoré, thank you for reminding me that real strength isn't in fists. It's in love." There wasn't a dry eye in the studio, and across the world, people stopped what they were doing and just felt. Some cried, some smiled, but all of them felt something they hadn't felt in a long time, hope. A call that changed everything. The next morning, Mike's phone rang. An unknown number lit up the screen. Something told him to answer. "Mike Tyson?" a calm voice asked. "Yes, who's this?" "This is Ibrahim Traoré, president of Burkina Faso." There was a pause. Then Traoré continued, "I saw what you did for Matty. You didn't just honor his father. You healed something in him and in yourself." Mike sat in silence, deeply moved. "I want to invite you back," the president said gently, "but this time not just for one boy. Come for a nation. Speak to our youth. Show them what it means to rise from nothing." Mike exhaled, his voice breaking. "You don't know what that means to me, brother." "I do," Traoré replied. And just like that, they made plans. Within 48 hours, Mike Tyson was on a plane back to Africa. A nation listening at a school in Ouagadougou. Hundreds of students gathered. Some sat cross-legged in the dust, wearing worn uniforms. Some held notebooks. Others clutched old newspaper clippings with Tyson's photo on them. Mike arrived quietly. No spotlight, no entourage. Just him, a folding chair, and a translator. He stood before them and began to speak slowly, honestly. "I used to think I was just a weapon," he said. "I didn't know I had a heart until I listened to a child." He spoke of Maddie, of losing his own mother, of prison, of how he fought in the ring because he didn't know where else to put his pain. Tears welled up in the eyes of boys who were taught real men never cry. Then Mike stepped down from the front and walked into the crowd. He stopped in front of one boy. You think no one sees you. But I do. You're strong even when you feel broken." The boy began to cry. Then another. And another. President Troy, standing quietly in the back, wiped a tear from his own cheek. This wasn't a speech. This was a revolution of hearts. Under the stars that night, Mike and President Troy sat beneath a star-filled sky. No reporters. No microphones. Just two men, carrying heavy pasts, but full hearts. After a long silence, Mike asked softly, "Why did you write that letter, Mr. President?" Troy smiled gently. "Because I saw the boy behind the fighter, and I believed the world still needed him." Mike didn't respond. He couldn't. His throat was tight. Then Troy added, "You reminded my people that strength isn't about fists. It's about rising again and again after life knocks you down." Mike nodded slowly. "That's all I ever tried to do," he said. They didn't just shake hands, they clasped them, like brothers, like two survivors from opposite corners of the world, meeting in a moment of shared understanding. The next morning, photos of Mike's visit to the school in Burkina Faso spread like wildfire across the internet. But it wasn't for fame. It wasn't about a celebrity in a foreign land. It was something deeper. People everywhere cried watching the footage. Mike embracing children, kneeling to their level, telling them they mattered, reminding them that scars are not signs of shame, but proof that they survived. Mike Tyson didn't leave Burkina Faso just as a boxing legend. He left as a healer. And President Ibrahim Traoré, the world saw him differently too, not just as a leader, but as a man who listens to hearts, not just politics. Back in New York, Mike returned to the very studio where his journey had first gone public. The host invited him for a follow-up interview. The producers expected smiles, polite answers, some laughs. What they got was silence. The lights dimmed. Mike looked older, wiser. His hands trembled just slightly. Then the host asked gently, "Mike, what changed you the most in Burkina Faso?" Mike looked straight into the camera, his voice barely a whisper. A child and a president. He reached into his coat pocket and slowly pulled out a folded piece of paper. A child's drawing. It was from me, the little boy from the village. Just a simple sketch. Mike holding me's hand, President Traoré standing behind them, all of them smiling. The studio went still. Mike's voice cracked. "He doesn't want to fight anymore," he said. "He just wants to grow." The host, usually sharp and quick, had no words. No one did. Mike continued, his voice shaking. That boy, he gave me peace. And Troy, he gave me purpose. A single tear rolled down his cheek. And for the first time, the world didn't see the heavyweight champion, didn't see the so-called baddest man on the planet. They saw a man who was finally healing. After the show, Mike sat alone in his dressing room. A staff member knocked and entered holding a brown envelope. It just arrived. International mail, she said. Mike opened it carefully. Inside, a handwritten letter from President Ibrahim Traoré. The script was familiar, but the words even more so. My brother Mike, they call me a president, but I am just a man who dreams. Dreams of healing. Dreams of peace. Your visit reminded us. Pain is not the end, it is the beginning. If we dare to feel it, not fight it. Burkina Faso thanks you. I thank you. And the boy, he now sleeps peacefully. Mike stared at the paper, and for the first time in years, he whispered a prayer, not for himself, but for every broken kid in the world, and every leader with a heart. He pressed the letter to his chest and murmured, I was never the baddest man on the planet. I was just a boy, waiting to be heard. And finally someone had listened. 1 week, that's all it took to turn pain into purpose. Mike Tyson stood quietly on the balcony of a building in Harlem, watching a few kids sparring down below. He wasn't their coach. He was just there, present. When one boy tripped and fell, Mike didn't laugh. He walked down, lifted him up, and said softly, Every fall teaches you how to rise. His phone buzzed. A photo had arrived from Burkina Faso. Me was standing in front of a brand-new boxing gym. He was smiling. The gym's name? Tyson Hope Center. Built by the Burkina Faso government. Signed and dedicated by President Traoré himself. Mike closed his eyes. The world had once called him a monster, but now a boy across the ocean called him a mentor. And that was enough. Closing message to the audience. If this story moved you even just a little, let your tears matter. Like, subscribe, share, tell us in the comments what moment made you cry the most. Let's fill this space with love, strength, and second chances, because even the toughest fighters need someone to believe in them. Until the next story, stay human, stay kind,